Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever it is you are today. Welcome to NetScaler Live Demo. My name is Andrew Scott, and I'm joined by Isha, Konstantinos, Sweeta, plus a bunch of other people from engineering to talk all about NetScaler and its Next Gen API. And this is all about a move to this declarative model. And I'm going to hand over to Konstantinos.
So in today's live session, we are going to talk about the next generation API, which is our new NetScaler API. We have released the API in tech preview, in public tech preview, starting with the 14.1, and we have backported also the functionalities to the 13.1. So this is a new, let's say, a major thing that we are working on. And today we are going to cover things like what are the core principles of the next generation API, what is the new config model, meaning what are the main differences when interacting with a new API. And also we are going to talk about how you can interact the API, and Sweeta is going to cover a demo where we are going to see a couple of different use cases. Initially, we were thinking to cover only these two use cases, but while working on the demo, we thought let's add a little more color in our today's demo. So we have added also some additional things like policies, how you can redirect traffic, how you can create responder policies and things like that. So I want to start with this phrase. As we all know, DevOps has taken the IT world by storm. So we are working close with many customers, and we are seeing this shift happening. More and more customers are investing in DevOps practices. They are looking towards automating their configurations, and they are mainly trying to find ways to make their daily operations easier, more scalable, and of course to provide all the user all these benefits to their customers. So why this is important? As I have already said, adopting DevOps practices increases customer satisfaction because you have a stable system, so you can increase scale easier. You can also have a stable system, so in case of failure, the system will go back to normal, because usually we are talking about intent-based systems. And also, we are talking about improved collaborations internally when it comes to engineers, when it comes to IT, operations, security, and things like that. This means that by adopting automation and DevOps practices, you have a way to do a digital transformation to your organization. So you can, let's say, again, adopt DevOps practices. You can work on hybrid and multi-cloud strategies, also work on security maturity programs by introducing also security into the automation and things like that. What we are trying to do from our side is to offer you the means so that you can do all of these things. And this is something that we have talked many times in previous live sessions and webinars. So for this reason, we have introduced a new portfolio called Automation Toolkit. Part of this portfolio is both infrastructure as code, but also the APIs. And this is what we are going to focus today. Again, as I usually say, if you follow the link from the QR code, you will go to a GitHub repository that contains all of the links, where you will find information also for the API, links for the developer docs that we are offering, getting started guides, also the API reference, the specification, and all of these things are available for you there. So I highly encourage you to visit all of these links and find out how you can also do the things that we are going to cover today. So, as mentioned, NetScaler provides a powerful set of APIs. We are working on this for many years now, and we have APIs to do everything on NetScaler. Of course, that doesn't mean that we cannot do better. So for this reason, we have focused on working on application-centric APIs, which will be the next generation version of the NetScaler API. And as Andrew already mentioned, we are talking about a declarative API, which main focus is to enable automation. So it's all about how you can interact easily and how you can also focus on, let's say, getting all of the benefits that I covered in the previous slide. So what is the next generation API? We are talking about a suite of app-centric declarative REST APIs to enable automation. So the reason that we decided to do something like this is because we would like you to focus more on your application. We know that automation teams are going to work with NetScaler, application owners are going to work, also DevOps personas are going to work, and all of these folks usually are not familiar with network concepts, are not familiar with NetScaler. For this reason, the new API is going to focus on the application concept. So you will have access to define a new application, which is what the tech preview is all about. And in next steps, we are going to introduce also additional APIs to also give you an ability to also get insights for the application. And finally, to also create an overall platform around the application with which you are working on. So what are the differences and why we decided to do that? Today, our existing API is rich of features. So you can do everything on NetScaler. You can do configuration, you can get monitoring information, but our API is there for many years, which means that when we designed the API, we built our API on top of the CLI, which means that it follows the way that the CLI works. It is imperative. You need to instruct NetScaler what to do. That means that you need to have some knowledge of NetScaler. It requires multiple steps to configure changes. Also, because it is imperative, no full validation is applied before is taking place before the configuration is applied, because again, you are configuring everything in steps. And in addition to that, because it is imperative, you are not let's say the relationship of all the objects that are being created is not automated. So you need to do also the binding. You need to create a virtual server. You need to bind the virtual server with other entities and all of these things. And of course, for all of these reasons, not all, let's say, not all of the configurations can be automatically rolled back if something goes wrong. All of these things are the things that we are addressing with a new API, in addition to the fact that we are focusing on making it app-centric rather than NetScaler-centric. So it is atomic, it is desired state, it performs validation, and of course, the rollbacks are automated. Now, I talked many times about an application-centric API, but what does that really mean? On the left side of the screen, you can see the Nitro configuration model, while on the right side, you are seeing what is the new model for configuring NetScaler. You will see that the differences are that the root object is the application with a new API, while on the old API, you had to specifically instruct NetScaler to create an LBV server, or let's say to create a rewrite policy, and then create all the additional configuration and bind all the entities together. On the other hand, with a new API, because it is around the concept of application, all of the new objects that we are, we are introducing are around the concept of application. So we are talking about routes, how you can route traffic to your application. We are talking about front ends and back ends, what front ends your application and how you can route traffic to these back ends. So you can see that there is a concept around how the application works. All of these things are things that Shweta is going to cover on the demo, and we are going to deep dive into how these things work and how you can configure these entities. But in short, the reason that this is important is because basically, apart from introducing an application-centric concept, we are also introducing a way for you to do more things with less effort. What you can see here in this slide is a pretty typical example of creating a content switching server. Using the Nitro API, in a typical case where you will have two LBV servers and a couple of, let's say, backends, and a content switching server in front of it, you will typically need around 28 Nitro API calls to do the configuration, because you need to create a certificate, you need to create the CSV server, you need to do all of the bindings, you need to also create policies, CS actions, all of these things. On the new API, you are going from 28 Nitro API calls to only 2. The reason for that is mainly because you can configure everything in both an atomic and also in a hierarchical format. You are creating a certificate just with a simple request, and you are creating an application, and you are adding all of the different information about how this application works as childs under the application. You can understand that this means that even if, let's say, you are adding additional content switching policies or actions or additional members or additional LBV servers, this can exponentially increase to tens of different Nitro API calls, while with the next generation API, you will continue sending only 2 requests because you are configuring a single application and a single certificate. Again, this is things that we are going to cover during the demo. Before that, just a simple example so that you can understand what is included in the tech preview. So this is a really bare, simple use case how you can create an application. If you would like to load balance traffic to an application that has been deployed to these 2 IPs, the only thing that you need to do is create an application and specify through which IP you are going to access the application, what is the certificate to be used, because we are talking about HTTPS, and what are the IPs to which the traffic is going to load balanced. The API is following REST best practices, so we are talking about post, put, and delete, so that you can also update the application, delete the application, and also we are talking about desired state. So you just need to post the exact same JSON payload, and NetScaler will be responsible to do all of the diffs and update for you, let's say, the NetScaler configuration accordingly. If you remove something, NetScaler will take care of this. If you change something, again, NetScaler will be responsible to update the configuration. So this is a small example, but having said that, I will ask Shweta to take it from here. Let's see a live demo, how you can do all of these things that I mentioned, and let's take it to a next step of how you can create an application, how you can configure policies, and how you can do all of the things that I have just mentioned. Shweta, if you are available, you can share your screen, and we are happy to see the demo.
Yeah, thanks, Konstantinos. Hello, everyone. Yes, so I'll just give a quick overview of the application that I'm going to configure through Next Generation API. As Konstantinos was mentioning, the goal of the Next Generation API to simplify application configuration on NetScaler. So here I'll be taking a content switching based application. I'm taking a beverages application, a simple example application that I'm taking. So this is a application. This is the front end of the application, which is listening on a specific VIP and port, and it has 2 backend applications, just calling them hot drinks and cold drinks backends. And this front end is also doing the SSL offload. So we have a certificate associated with it. And yeah, apart from the simple content switching application, I'll also be showing how do you configure HTTP redirect rules and responder rules. And if you want to have a custom audit messages configuration for your traffic, how would you do so? And I'll also show what are the different ways you can, update your application once you have created the application. How would you do further updates to your application? So I'm using the Postman tool to do my API calls to NetScaler. So as in any interface here for the Next Generation API, in order to start using the API interface, you'll have to first do a login. So here I'm doing a login request. You'll have to give a username, password, and a timeout. The timeout is basically after how much of inactivity time you want the system to kill that session. It's an activity period, timeout. So once I do the request, yes, the login is done. I got a session ID. There's a cookie. So for the subsequent request, I'll be using the cookie to do the communication. So this is, I'm just trying to show that to start with, there are no applications in the system. I'm sorry, I think there was some problem. Let me do the relogin again. Yes. Yes, there are no applications, and I'll just show that there are no certificates. Let me quickly show how my application looks like, whatever I explained in the slide. I said I have one front end, so I'm defining one front end. So this is a API, this is a post request, and this is the endpoint management API Next Gen V1 applications. And I'm creating a application, which is, I'm naming it beverages application, beverages app. And there is one front end, so I have a front end, and there is one front end object here. And it is listening on a particular IP and port. And as I said, my front end is also doing a SSL offload. So I have defined a certificate here, beverages app cert. I reference to an existing certificate. And I have two backends as in the slide. So I have two backends, one for the cold drinks and one for the hard drinks. And if you look at the backends closely, there is a, I have set up a bunch of servers which are running my application cold drinks. And I also specify here my load balancing settings. So I have two ways to specify the load balancing settings, like what load balancing method you would want to apply on this backend servers, and what persistency you want to configure on this. All those things you can configure through the load balancing settings. So one way is you define your object here as a definition here, load balancing, and reference it. This is useful when you want to have the same settings across different backends. So I have defined it separately, and I'm referencing it here. Or you might as well do an inline definition of the load balancing settings. This is true for any references that you see here. Whatever refs you see, either you do an inline definition or you define it separately and you refer to it. So here I have defined the load balancing setting here. I'm configuring my algorithm as round robin. And I also want to monitor my backend servers. So I'm configuring a monitor. So I have a definition for monitor health checks. It's a simple HTTP monitor. I'm telling the NetScaler that do a get on my backend server. If my server returns a 200 OK, assume that the service is up. So this is a simple application. This is a simple monitor that I have defined here, and I'm referring to that monitor in my backend. This is my cold drink backend, and now I have a similar to that. I have a hard drinks backend. I have some set of servers here. I have only one server, and I have defined the load balance settings and monitor settings for this. So far we defined the front end, which is listening on a particular VIP port, and I have bunch of backends. They are running on separate servers. And now I'm defining route. Basically, once I have front end and back end, I want to define a rule saying that from which front end to which back end, how should the traffic flow. So here I'm defining, here I have only one front end. So I'm not, again, it's basically to map your front ends to the back end based on a condition, how would you want to route the traffic. So here, since I have only one front end, I'm not explicitly mentioning. So here I'm saying whatever the traffic that is coming onto the front end, use this filter to filter out and send the traffic to this particular backend. So I'm saying that if my incoming request is having the host coldrinks.beverages.com, go to this coldrinks backend. If similarly, I have another route defining, if my host says that hotdrinks.beverages.com, go to backend hot drinks. Here, if you have seen this filter, it is similar to if you are aware of NetScaler, how you usually add policies. It's something in terms of PI expressions, how you define based on your L7, rules, the conditions. It's a similar way, but just to simplify the whole, whenever your use case is simple, you should be able to define your rule in a simple language. We have taken an inspiration from, kind of Wireshark, which is well used tool. So you can use the filter to give a simple in the rule, the condition using the simple language like this, and define your routes. In case you think that you have a very complex rule, which only the the PI expressions, usually you can do much more complex rules. If in case your requirement is to have a requirement is to have a very complex rule, you can use a PI expression rule as well. There is a separate key through which you can use that. This is only for the, this is to ease the thing for the cases where you can define in simple terms. You can use this format. Otherwise, you can use the PI expression format. So this is about the routes. So I've defined my front ends, back ends, and routes, mapping the front ends to the back ends. So this is my content switching application. And so here, as I said, I'm referring to a certificate. I haven't added the certificate yet. And like Konstantinos was mentioning, these are desired state APIs, and these are also actually work in asynchronous fashion. They are basically, once you submit a request, the API request gets validated. Once the request is found to be valid, then it stores in the data store. Now that I'm trying to refer to a certificate which doesn't exist, I expect the system to fail. So I'll just show you, I'll run it and show that whether the system will return an error or not. So yeah, as expected, it says that the certificate doesn't exist. Let me quickly go ahead and add the certificate. I'd like to take a moment on the certificate API. So this is a certificate API. Today, in case you want to add a certificate, server certificate on the NetScaler, you'll have to add the certificate keys and the intermediates and CAs and everything, upload all the certificate files, and you have to use the SSL certificate object to, create the cert key entities for each of those and link them manually. Here, there is a single API provided through which you can specify your entire server cert and key. And if there is a password, specify the password as well. And the whole chain also you can specify in the same API. So this way you're simplifying your certificate management to a single API. So once you create the certificate, I've created it already. So it just gave me some details about what my certificate is. And let me go ahead and try add application. This time I expect it to go through. Yes, I got a 201 created. As I was saying, the API is working in an asynchronous fashion. So right now what happened, I find the API, the Next Gen Infra has validated it, it accepted it, it started working on applying this configuration on the NetScaler packet engine. So now I want to know whether it is successfully applied or not. I mean, it is because I validated, I expect it to work. But if I want to know whether it is installed yet or not, I have an API called config status through which you will be able to check whether your request that you have filed is actually in effect on the NetScaler or not. So if the status says installed, that means the configuration has been successfully applied. If in case it is in progress, you have some more information as to where it is, whether it is picked up or not, whether it is doing some diff computation because it's a desired state and updates and all, there'll be a diff computation happening, and then applies the configuration to the packet engine. So it lets you know that, what state it is in. So going back, so yes, I added a content switching application through single API now. Now I would like to show through an update API, how do you add the redirect rules? So here, trying to add a redirect rule for my front end. I want to say that in case somebody is accessing coldrinks.beverages.com/Pepsi, I want to redirect them to the home page. Similarly, for the hot beverages as well, if the path has some extra parameter or extra key like /t, go back to the home page. So this is the redirect configuration that I would want to add to my front end. Let me send it. Yes, it's accepted, 200 OK. Next, let me show the responder configuration. So we added a content switching application and we added redirect configuration. Now coming to the responder. I want to block users from accessing some of the internal sites. Say I've taken an example here. Somebody is trying to do /admin page, which is not expected to be used by the end users. I want to block them. So I'm trying to respond with this configuration. I'm basically responding with a 403 forbidden page. And I would also get notified. I would also like to get notified of such, access, anybody is accessing an internal page. I would like to get notified about it through audit log. So I'm adding a configuration audit log. So there is a log level and you can say message, what would you want to log it in your audit log system. So this is the message I would want to log whenever somebody is trying to access an internal page. So let me go ahead and do this update as well. So yeah, so far we did redirect and responder. Let me now show you another way to update the application configuration. So far, the update request that you have seen, we have done a desired state update. So you have to have the complete application current state and then do your modifications to the payload and then resubmit that application. That's the desired state way of doing the update. But we understand that, many a times your, some of the use cases are very frequent, like adding and removing servers from your backends. So your applications may be going through changes very often. So this is something that you would do, on every day or every hour basis sort of thing. So especially in an environments like Kubernetes or any other orchestration systems where your applications may be going through scale in, scale out, or upgrades, where the frequency of the addition and deletion of the servers is very frequent. We want you to be able to do in a very simple way instead of having the complete desired state to be resubmitted with the changes. So we provided a sub API, what we call it sub API. This we call sub APIs. So we are saying for this beverages application, for this backend hard drinks, add a server. Through the post API, I'm specifying that. So this is an easy way to add one or more servers. You can even specify a bunch of servers if you want. So this is the updating of the backend through a patch API. So yes, so now that I've done the configuration, I would want to access the application and show you how that works. So I'm using Safari here. So this is my application, hotdrinks.beverages.com. And if I do, you can see the IP is changing. This is just to show that the load balancing is actually happening. Similarly, let me access cold drinks application. So this is also, doing the load balancing and going to different servers. Now, let me show the redirect, how it works. I'm trying to access the Pepsi. It should take me back to my home page. Yes, it redirected me to home page. This is the redirection part. Let me show how the responder works. So I tried to access an internal one. So I got a forbidden and not permitted page. And the same, if I show from here, I can see that there is a, there is a log message recorded in the audit message saying that, okay, somebody from here, sorry, show. That's the message that is created, but you can see that there is a responder message saying that, okay, this so-and-so admin from this so-and-so client is trying to access this page. So that's the responder part of it. And just to complete the demo, in order to delete an application in the Nitro, if you are using Nitro API, if you have a web configuration that you want to tear down the entire application, you'll have to fire multiple API calls in a specific order, and all this sometimes is a pain for the admin. Here, because you are dealing with the entire application as an entity, you just need to do a single API to delete the complete application. So you just did delete and then you go back and try to access. You shouldn't be able to access that. So it's trying now. Yeah. So this is the this is about the demo. But there are more things that you can do, like obviously when you're having some APIs or some configuration, you need some RBA. So we can see in the upcoming sessions how you can configure up RBA to let users only do a specific functionality in the next generation API. And similarly, complete lifecycle management of the application also will show you in the upcoming sessions.
Thanks, Shweta. That was a really nice demo. I hope everyone enjoyed.
Thank you very much for everyone today. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you again in the future.